The Secret Altar of Ugwueke. The morning sun shone brightly over Ugwueke village in eastern Nigeria. Women swept their compounds with palm-frond brooms while men prepared for their daily farm work. Children played around, their laughter filling the air. But beneath this seemingly peaceful atmosphere, there was an unspoken fear that had gripped the village for years. Mama Adana stood in front of her small mud house, watching her only remaining child play with others. Her eyes were filled with worry. 6 months ago, she had lost her younger son, Chinedu, in what the villagers called the mysterious death. No one knew what caused these deaths, but every 6 months, without fail, 2 children would die in the village. "Adana," she called to her daughter, "come inside and eat before going to school." As the girl ran towards her mother, a cloud of dust appeared in the distance. It was a convoy of 3 expensive cars driving into the village. The children stopped playing and began jumping with excitement. "Mr. Chike is back! Mr. Chike is back!" They shouted in unison. The news spread quickly. Men left their farm tools, women abandoned their chores, and soon a crowd gathered at the village square to welcome the village's most famous son. Chike was a wealthy businessman who lived in the city. He had made his fortune through various businesses that nobody in the village fully understood. What they knew was that he was very rich and generous. Every 6 months, during festival periods, he would return to Ugwueke with gifts, money, and scholarships for the village children. The first car stopped, and out stepped 2 men in black suits, Chike's bodyguards. They surveyed the area before opening the door to the second car. Mr. Chike stepped out, wearing an expensive white agbada with gold embroidery. His neck and wrists shone with gold jewelry. He smiled broadly as the villagers sang his praises. "Our son has come again. The helper of the poor. God bless you, Mr. Chike." Chief Somadila Chikamsi, the elderly traditional ruler of Ugwueke, walked forward with the support of his walking stick. He was a tall man despite his advanced age, with grey hair and wise eyes that had seen many seasons. "My son," he said, embracing Chike, "you have remembered us again." Chike bowed slightly before the chief. "How can I forget my roots, my people? I have come as usual to celebrate with you and see how I can help." The villagers clapped and cheered. Children danced around the cars, hoping to catch glimpses of other treasures that might be inside. "The festival starts tomorrow," the chief said. "But tonight, we must have a small feast to welcome you properly." Chike smiled. "I have brought enough food and drinks for everyone, and this time I want to select 10 more children for scholarships to attend the best schools in the city." More cheers erupted from the crowd. Parents pushed their children forward, hoping they would be among the lucky ones selected. As the celebration continued, Mama Adana stood at the back of the crowd, holding her daughter's hand tightly. Unlike the others, she wasn't smiling. "Why aren't you happy, Mama?" Adana asked. "Maybe I will get a scholarship this time." Mama Adana looked down at her daughter, then at Mr. Chike, who was now distributing sweets to the children. "I just find it strange that these deaths always happen after Mr. Chike's visits," she whispered. "But Mr. Chike is a good man," Adana protested. "Everyone says so." "Perhaps," Mama Adana replied, "but I have noticed this pattern for years. I am not the only one. Your father noticed it too before he died." A few meters away, Pastor Emmanuel of the Assemblies of God Church observed the celebration from a distance. He was a new pastor who had been transferred to the village church just 3 months ago. He had heard about the mysterious deaths and had been praying about the situation since his arrival. "Pastor, won't you join the celebration?" asked one of his church members who was passing by. Pastor Emmanuel shook his head. "Something doesn't feel right about all this. I can't explain it, but I sense a dark cloud over this village." "It's the deaths, Pastor," the church member said quietly. 2 more children will die soon. It always happens after the festival." "Not this time," Pastor Emmanuel said firmly. "We will hold a 3-day crusade next week. We will pray against these evil powers." As the day progressed, Mr. Chike settled into the special guest house that the village had built specifically for his visits. It was the only modern building in the village, with a generator for electricity and running water, luxuries that the rest of the villagers did not have. That night, as the village slept, Chike slipped out of his guest house through a secret back door. He moved silently through the dark paths of the village until he reached a dense part of the forest. There, hidden among ancient trees, was a small cave covered with thick vines and leaves. Chike looked around to ensure he wasn't followed, then entered the cave. Inside, the darkness gave way to an eerie red glow. At the center of the cave was an altar made of human bones and strange carvings. Skulls of various sizes were arranged in a circle, and in the middle was a black pot filled with a bubbling liquid despite there being no fire beneath it. Chike removed his clothes and put on a red robe decorated with white chalk marks. He knelt before the altar and began to chant in a language unknown to the village. Great Ugwueke, he called to the dark spirit that had given him wealth and power. I have returned to renew our covenant. In 2 days, I will bring you the sacrifice of 2 pure souls as we agreed. A deep, inhuman voice responded from the bubbling pot. 6 months have passed. My hunger grows. Bring me the children, and your wealth will continue to flow. Chike bowed his head. It shall be done, great Ugwueke. The villagers trust me completely. They see me as their savior, not knowing I am the cause of their sorrow. The dark spirit laughed, a sound like bones breaking. Choose carefully. I need the purest souls to maintain your power. I already have my eyes on 2 children, Chike replied. The daughter of Mama Adana and the son of the blacksmith. They are healthy and bright. Good, the spirit replied. Remember, without these sacrifices, all you have built will crumble. Your wealth, your influence, your very life depends on it. Chike stood up. I understand. For 20 years I have kept our covenant. I will not fail now. As he left the cave, Chike didn't notice a pair of eyes watching him from behind a tree. It was Uche, a young hunter who had been tracking a bush rat when he saw Chike entering the cave. Curious, he had followed and overheard everything. Terrified, Uche ran back to the village. He had to tell someone, but who would believe that the great Mr. Chike, the benefactor of Ugwueke, was actually an evil occultist who sacrificed children? The next morning, the festival began in earnest. Drums beat loudly, masquerades danced through the village, and food was prepared in large quantities. Mr. Chike had provided plenty of meat, rice, and drinks for everyone. Children ran around in new clothes that he had brought for them. In the midst of the celebration, Uche sought out Chief Somadila. He found the old man sitting under the village's ancient Iroko tree, watching the festivities with a cup of palm wine in his hand. Great Chief, Uche said, bowing, I need to speak with you urgently. It's about Mr. Chike. The chief looked at the young hunter with mild interest. What about our generous son? Uche looked around to make sure no one was listening. I saw something last night. Something terrible. He proceeded to tell the chief about following Chike to the cave and the conversation with the dark spirit. As he spoke, the chief's expression changed from interest to disbelief, then to anger. How dare you speak such evil about our biggest benefactor? The chief barked. Mr. Chike has done nothing but good for this village. He has sent many of our children to school, built roads, and even provided medicine for our health center. But Chief, I saw it with my own eyes, Uche insisted. The altar, the skulls. I heard him mention the children who will die. The chief stood up, his tall frame towering over Uche. Enough. If you spread these lies among the villagers, I will have you banished. Mr. Chike is a good man. The deaths are a mystery that we are trying to solve. Even the dibia I brought from Enugu could not explain it. Uche realized the chief wouldn't believe him. Who would choose the word of a poor hunter over that of a wealthy businessman who had done so much for the village? As he walked away dejected, Uche bumped into Pastor Emmanuel, who was on his way to invite villagers to the upcoming crusade. You look troubled, my son, the pastor said, noticing Uche's frustrated expression. Uche hesitated. Would the pastor believe him when the chief didn't? But something about the pastor's kind eyes made him decide to try once more. Pastor, can we talk in private? He asked. They moved to a quiet spot behind the church, and Uche recounted what he had witnessed the previous night. Unlike the chief, Pastor Emmanuel listened carefully without interrupting. I believe you, the pastor said when Uche finished his story. For weeks I have sensed an evil presence in this village, but I couldn't identify its source. Now it all makes sense. The timing of the deaths, Mr. Chike's regular visits every 6 months, it's all connected. What can we do? Uche asked. No one will believe us. They all think Mr. Chike is a saint. Pastor Emmanuel placed a hand on Uche's shoulder. We will fight this battle spiritually. The crusade we are planning is even more important now. We need to pray and break this evil covenant. Meanwhile, Mr. Chike was at the village square, announcing the names of children who would receive scholarships to study in the city. Parents cheered as their children's names were called. Among them was Adana, Mama Adana's daughter. Adana Okafor, Chike announced with a smile. Your daughter has been selected for her excellent performance in school. Mama Adana stood frozen. Unlike the other parents who rushed forward with joy, she remained in place, a look of terror on her face. Later that day, she confronted her daughter. You cannot accept this scholarship. But Mama, why? Adana cried. This is my chance to get a good education, to become somebody important like Mr. Chike. I don't want you to be like Mr. Chike, Mama Adana said firmly. There is something not right about that man. The timing of these scholarships and the deaths, it cannot be a coincidence. You're just being superstitious, Mama, Adana protested. Everyone says Mr. Chike is a good man. Before Mama Adana could respond, there was a knock on their door. It was Pastor Emmanuel and Uche. May we come in? The pastor asked. Inside, Uche told his story again, this time to Mama Adana and her daughter. When he finished, Mama Adana nodded slowly. I knew it, she said. My husband used to say there was something strange about Mr. Chike's generosity. No one becomes that rich so quickly without a dark secret. Adana looked shocked. But he seemed so nice. He gave me a scholarship. That's how he selects his victims, Pastor Emmanuel explained gently. He chooses children who are bright and healthy. According to what Uche heard, you and the blacksmith's son are his next targets. What do we do? Mama Adana asked, fear evident in her voice. Join us at the crusade, Pastor Emmanuel said. Starting tomorrow, we will hold 3 days of intense prayers. We will break this covenant and expose Mr. Chike for what he truly is. As they made plans, Mr. Chike was in his guest house, speaking on the phone with some of his business associates in the city. On the surface, he ran legitimate businesses, import and export, real estate, and a chain of supermarkets. What his associates didn't know was that his wealth came from a dark covenant that required regular human sacrifices. After the call, Chike sat on his luxurious bed, thinking about the next day's plans. He would need to lure Adana and the blacksmith's son, Obinna, away from the village to complete his sacrifice. Usually, he would invite them to his guest house under the pretense of preparing them for their city life, then drug them and take them to the cave at night. But something felt different this time. He had noticed Pastor Emmanuel watching him closely during the festivities. There was something about the pastor's gaze that made him uncomfortable. Could the pastor know something? Chike dismissed the thought. No one had discovered his secret in 20 years. The villagers were too grateful for his help to suspect him of any wrongdoing. Even when the deaths coincided with his visits, they never made the connection. Still, he decided to be extra cautious. He would move up his plans and perform the sacrifice tomorrow night, instead of waiting until the end of the festival as he usually did. The next morning, colorful banners announcing the Assemblies of God Church Crusade were hung around the village. The church compound had been cleared and chairs arranged for what Pastor Emmanuel hoped would be a large turnout. 3 days of divine liberation, the banners read. Come and experience freedom from all bondage. Mr. Chike noticed the preparations as he walked through the village. He approached Pastor Emmanuel, who was directing some church members on where to place the sound equipment. Good morning, Pastor, Chike said with a forced smile. I see you're organizing a program. Pastor Emmanuel nodded. Yes, Mr. Chike, it's a crusade for the spiritual liberation of Ugwueke. We've been troubled by these mysterious deaths for too long. It's time to seek divine intervention. Chike's smile faltered slightly. That's commendable. But don't you think it's a bit presumptuous to believe your prayers can solve what even the traditional dibia couldn't? With God, all things are possible, Pastor Emmanuel replied, looking directly into Chike's eyes. Sometimes, what traditional methods cannot solve, faith can. Chike felt a strange discomfort under the pastor's gaze. It was as if the man could see through his facade, into the darkness of his soul. He quickly changed the subject. "Well, I wish you success," he said. "By the way, I'm looking for Adana Okafor and Obina, the blacksmith's son. I wanted to start their orientation for city life today." "I believe they'll be attending the crusade," Pastor Emmanuel said. "Perhaps you can talk to them afterward." Chike nodded and walked away, his mind racing. This crusade could complicate his plans. If many villagers attended, it might be difficult to get the children alone. He would need to act quickly. As the day progressed, villagers began gathering at the church compound. Some came out of curiosity, others out of genuine spiritual hunger. Mama Adana brought Adana, and the blacksmith came with his son Obina. Uche was also there, helping with the arrangements. To Chike's dismay, a large crowd had formed by evening. Pastor Emmanuel stood on the makeshift podium, a Bible in his hand. "People of Ugwueke," he began, his voice amplified by the speakers. "For too long, this village has been under a dark cloud. Every 6 months, we lose 2 precious children to mysterious deaths. We have sought answers from various sources, but the deaths continue." The villagers murmured in agreement. Every family had either lost a child or knew someone who had. "Today we begin a spiritual battle," Pastor Emmanuel continued. "We will pray for 3 days, breaking every evil covenant over this land. By the power of God, we will expose the source of these deaths and bring it to an end." The crowd responded with, "Amen." Some began to clap and sing. From the back of the gathering, Chike watched with growing unease. He had never believed in the Christian God, having given his allegiance to the dark spirit Ozukwu years ago. But something about the conviction in Pastor Emmanuel's voice disturbed him. The first night of the crusade was powerful. Pastor Emmanuel preached about God's power over darkness, and many villagers came forward to commit their lives to Christ. The prayers were fervent, with people crying out to God for deliverance from the evil plaguing their community. As the service ended around midnight, Chike slipped away. He needed to speak with Ozukwu, to seek guidance on how to proceed. In the cave, the altar seemed agitated. The pot bubbled more violently, and the red glow was dimmer than usual. "Great Ozukwu," Chike called, "I face a challenge. There's a crusade in the village. The pastor seems determined to expose evil forces." The spirit's voice came, but it sounded strained. "I feel interference, the prayers. They weaken the boundary between my realm and yours." "What should I do?" Chike asked, genuinely worried for the first time in years. "Complete the sacrifice tonight," the spirit commanded. "Do not wait. Bring the children before the prayers become too strong." Chike nodded. "I'll get them now." As he left the cave, he formulated a plan. He would go to Mama Adana's house first, claiming there was an urgent need to take Adana to the city that night for registration. Then he would do the same with Obina. Once he had both children, he would bring them to the cave for the sacrifice. But as he approached Mama Adana's house, he saw lights still on. Through the window, he could see Pastor Emmanuel, Uche, Mama Adana and Adana praying together. They were holding hands, forming a circle in the small living room. Chike cursed under his breath. He would have to try Obina's house instead. But there, too, he found a similar scene. The blacksmith's family was hosting a prayer meeting with some church members. It seemed the pastor had organized prayer cells throughout the village, especially in the homes of the potential victims. Chike returned to his guest house, frustrated and angry. For the first time in 20 years, his plans were being thwarted. He decided to wait until morning. Perhaps he could find a way to get the children alone then. The second day of the crusade drew an even larger crowd. Word had spread about the powerful first night, and more villagers wanted to be part of it. Even Chief Somadila attended, curious to see what the pastor was doing. Pastor Emmanuel's message that evening was direct and bold. "Ugwueke has been under a covenant of death," he declared. "Someone has made a pact with dark forces, sacrificing innocent children every 6 months for personal gain." The crowd gasped. This was the first time anyone had publicly suggested such a thing. "Tonight we will pray specifically against this covenant," the pastor continued. "We will call upon the God who sees in secret to expose what has been hidden for years." As the prayers began, Chike felt a strange sensation in his body. It started as a mild discomfort but grew into a burning pain. He tried to leave the gathering, but his legs felt heavy, as if they were rooted to the ground. Uche, who had been watching Chike closely, nudged Pastor Emmanuel and pointed. The pastor nodded and intensified his prayers. Every yoke of bondage, break now in Jesus' name. Every evil covenant, be nullified by the blood of Jesus. As these words rang out, Chike fell to his knees, clutching his chest. Some villagers moved to help him, thinking he was ill, but Uche stopped them. Don't touch him, Uche warned. Just watch. Chike's pain subsided after a few minutes, and he managed to stand and walk away. But the experience had shaken him deeply. The spirit had warned him about the prayers, but he hadn't expected to be affected personally. He had always believed his juju was stronger than any Christian prayers. That night, he returned to the cave in a panic. "Great Ozukwu," he called. "What is happening?" I felt pain during their prayers. The pot bubbled weakly, and the voice that responded was faint. "Their God is strong. The pastor has great faith. You must complete the sacrifice before it's too late." "But I can't get to the children," Chike explained. "They're always surrounded by praying people." "Then take any children," the spirit commanded. "I need the life force." Chike was desperate. His wealth, his power, everything depended on maintaining the covenant. "I'll find a way," he promised. The next morning, Chike approached a group of children playing near his guest house. Among them were two young boys who weren't part of the families attending the crusade. "Hello, children," he said with a forced smile. "Would you like to see the presents I brought from the city? I have toys and sweets in my guest house." The children looked excited, but one of them, a girl named Chinyere, hesitated. "My mother says we shouldn't go into anyone's house without permission." "It will be quick," Chike assured them. "Just come and choose what you want, then you can go back to playing." Two boys, Emeka and Namdi, followed him eagerly. As they entered the guest house, Chike quickly locked the door behind them. "Where are the sweets?" Emeka asked innocently. "You'll get them soon," Chike said, his voice suddenly cold. He pulled out a small bottle containing a sedative and prepared to drug the children. But before he could act, there was a loud knock on the door. It was Uche and two other young men from the village. "Mr. Chike," Uche called. "Pastor Emmanuel would like to speak with you about contributing to the church-building project." Chike cursed silently. He couldn't ignore the knock without raising suspicion. He quickly hid the sedative and opened the door slightly. "I'm a bit busy now," he said. "Perhaps later." Uche pushed the door open wider, revealing the two frightened boys inside. "What are these children doing here?" he asked, his voice laced with suspicion. "I was just showing them some gifts I brought," Chike explained, trying to sound casual. They were curious. "Come, boys," Uche said, beckoning to the children. "Your mothers are looking for you." The boys quickly ran out, sensing something was wrong. Chike glared at Uche, his facade of friendliness slipping. "You're interfering in matters you don't understand," he said in a low, threatening voice. "I understand more than you think," Uche replied, holding Chike's gaze. "We're watching you, Mr. Chike, every move." As Uche and his friends left with the children, Chike felt a wave of panic. His time was running out. The final night of the crusade was that evening, and he still hadn't secured his sacrifices. The spirit would be furious, and the consequences would be dire. He decided on a desperate plan. He would attend the crusade that night and try to disrupt it somehow. If he could stop the prayers, perhaps the spirit's power wouldn't be further diminished. The third and final night of the crusade saw the entire village in attendance. Even those who had been skeptical at first were now curious about what had been happening. The atmosphere was charged with expectation. Pastor Emmanuel stood before the crowd, his Bible open. "Tonight is the night of complete deliverance," he declared. "God has shown me that the source of Ugwueke's suffering will be exposed and destroyed tonight." The crowd responded with enthusiastic amens and hallelujahs. People began to sing and dance, their faith building with each moment. Chike arrived late, positioning himself at the very back of the gathering. He had a small charm in his pocket, something he hoped would protect him from the effects of the prayers. As the worship intensified, Pastor Emmanuel began to pray loudly. "Every hidden thing shall be revealed tonight. Every work of darkness shall be exposed. Suddenly, the sky darkened, though it wasn't yet time for sunset. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and a strong wind began to blow through the village. Some people looked up in alarm, but Pastor Emmanuel remained focused. "It's a spiritual reaction," he explained. "Keep praying. We're breaking through." Chike felt the charm in his pocket grow hot. He pulled it out, only to see it crumbling to dust in his hand. Panic seized him. Without the charm's protection, he was vulnerable to the prayers. As Pastor Emmanuel led the congregation in warfare prayers, Chike began to feel the same burning sensation he'd experienced the previous day, but much stronger now. It was as if fire was coursing through his veins. He tried to leave, but just as he turned to go, a blinding flash of lightning struck nearby, illuminating the entire area. In that moment of bright light, several villagers saw something that made them gasp in horror. For a split second, they saw not the well-dressed, charming Mr. Chike, but a grotesque figure with hollow eyes and skin that seemed to be decaying. It was a glimpse of his true spiritual state, revealed by the divine light. Chike realized what had happened from the looks of terror on the faces of those around him. His secret was being exposed. In desperation, he ran toward his car, parked near the church. "Stop him!" Uche shouted, but Chike was already in the car, starting the engine. As he sped away, Pastor Emmanuel called out, "Continue praying. God is not finished." Chike drove frantically, heading out of the village. He needed to reach the cave to communicate with the spirit and find a way to salvage the situation. Perhaps if he offered himself as a sacrifice, the spirit would spare him and grant him another chance. But as he approached the area where the crusade had been held, his car suddenly stopped. The engine died completely, refusing to restart no matter how many times he turned the key. "No, no, no," he shouted, pounding on the steering wheel. Then, without warning, a bolt of lightning struck directly in front of his car. The ground shook, and Chike was thrown forward against the windshield. When he recovered, he stepped out of the car, dazed and terrified. Another lightning bolt struck, this time hitting his legs. Chike screamed in agony and collapsed to the ground. The pain was unbearable, unlike anything he had ever experienced. As he writhed on the ground, villagers who had been following him gathered around, keeping a safe distance. Among them were Pastor Emmanuel, Uche, Mama Adana, and Chief Somadila. "What is happening to him?" the chief asked, his voice trembling. "God's judgment," Pastor Emmanuel replied solemnly. "The prayers have broken the covenant. Now the truth will come out." And indeed, as the pain overwhelmed him, Chike began to speak, his voice a mixture of agony and resignation. "I confess," he cried out, "I am the one responsible for the deaths in Ugwueke." The villagers gasped, though some had already begun to suspect the truth. 20 years ago," Chike continued, his words coming in painful bursts, "I made a covenant with a dark spirit named Ozukwu. It promised me wealth and power in exchange for regular sacrifices. Every 6 months, I had to provide 2 pure souls, children from my own village." Chief Somadila stepped forward, his old face contorted with grief and anger. "My own grandson was among those who died. How could you do this to your own people?" "The desire for wealth consumed me," Chike replied, tears streaming down his face. "I convinced myself that the sacrifice of a few was worth the benefits I could bring to many. I built roads, provided scholarships, brought development, all to hide my dark secret." "But you killed innocent children," Mama Adana shouted. "My son Chinedu died because of you." Chike couldn't look at her. "I know, and there's no forgiveness for what I've done. But you should know, the assembly's prayers defeated me. I have many powers to charm all churches here in this community, but the assembly's people own. I don't know where they got their power." As he spoke, his body began to convulse violently. "The spirit is claiming me now," he gasped. "Without the sacrifices, the covenant demands my life instead." Pastor Emmanuel stepped forward. "It's not too late to renounce this evil covenant and turn to God for forgiveness." But Chike shook his head. "It's too late for me. The spirit has marked me for death." He looked at the villagers gathered around him. "I am sorry for the pain I caused. I thought I was helping Ugwueke, but I was its greatest curse." With those words, he let out a final, agonizing cry and then fell silent. Mr. Chike, the wealthy businessman and secret occultist, was dead. The days that followed were difficult for Ugwueke. The villagers had to come to terms with the shocking truth about Mr. Chike, the man they had revered as their benefactor. Many felt betrayed, while others were simply relieved that the mystery of the deaths had finally been solved. Chief Somadila organized a cleansing ritual for the village, combining traditional practices with Christian prayers, led by Pastor Emmanuel. Together they visited the cave, where Chike had performed his dark rituals and destroyed the altar. The families who had lost children found some comfort in knowing the truth, though it didn't bring back their loved ones. Mama Adana, in particular, became a strong voice in the community, urging people to be vigilant and not to be blinded by material wealth. "We must look beyond appearances," she often said during village meetings. "The person bringing gifts with one hand may be causing harm with the other." As for the scholarships Mr. Chike had provided, investigations revealed that many of the children he had supposedly sent to the city had actually been his victims. Only a few had genuinely benefited from his scholarships, mostly those whose parents had connections outside the village and could verify their children's well-being. Pastor Emmanuel's church grew significantly after the events. Many villagers, having witnessed the power of prayer in breaking the evil covenant, turned to Christianity. The Assemblies of God Church became a central part of community life in Ugwueke. Uche was celebrated as a hero for his role in uncovering the truth. His courage in following Chike to the cave and then sharing what he had seen, despite the risk of disbelief and ridicule, had been crucial in saving the village. 1 year after Chike's death, the village held a memorial service for all the children who had been sacrificed over the years. 40 names were read aloud, 20 years of sacrifices, 2 children every 6 months. It was a solemn occasion, but also one of healing. "These children did not die in vain," Pastor Emmanuel said during the service. "Their innocent blood has led to the liberation of Ugwueke from a terrible evil. Now we must honor their memory by building a community where truth and genuine love prevail, not deception masked as generosity." Life in Ugwueke gradually returned to normal, though it was a new normal. The village no longer had Mr. Chike's financial support, but the community came together to establish a cooperative fund for education and development projects. It was smaller in scale than what Chike had provided, but it was honest and free from blood. The mysterious deaths ceased completely. Children played without fear, and parents no longer counted the months with dread, wondering whose child would be next. Chief Somadila, aged by the ordeal and his own guilt for not believing Uche earlier, decided to step down as the traditional ruler. In his place, the village selected a council of elders, including Mama Adana, to make decisions collectively. "We must never again put our trust so completely in one person," the old chief said in his farewell address. "Power must be shared, and leaders must be accountable." As for the cave where Chike had conducted his rituals, it was sealed and marked as a forbidden place. Some suggested destroying it completely, but Pastor Emmanuel advised against it. "Let it stand as a reminder," he said. "Not all that glitters is gold, and not all who claim to help have pure intentions. This cave will remind future generations to look beyond appearances and test every spirit." Adana, who had narrowly escaped becoming one of Chike's victims, grew up to become a teacher in the village school. She often told the story of Mr. Chike to her students, not to frighten them, but to teach them discernment. "There will always be people who pretend to be what they are not," she would say, "but truth has a way of coming to light, especially when good people have the courage to stand for what is right." Ugwueke had learned its lesson the hard way. The village that had once been known for its mysterious deaths now became known for its strong community spirit and vigilance against evil. The people understood that true help doesn't ask for blood in return, and that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one bearing gifts. As years passed, the story of Mr. Chike and the secret altar became part of the village's oral history, a cautionary tale passed down from generation to generation. Please don't put your trust and confidence in your fellow human being. Always pray to your God and never move with what you see. Trust and believe in God. One day He will open your chapter. May God bless you as you watch and subscribe. These the end of the story. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this channel for more content like this. Make sure you drop your comment and share your thoughts with us.